a pressman comes out with an article.
Yeah.
There's a question. It's going to be censored. It's going to be censored by a politician.
Yeah.
So these are some of the challenges.
Yeah.
But it can happen.
Yeah.
It can happen. We'll be able to get freedom of the press. When we are able to get resources to support these press houses and to ensure that there is no political interference whatsoever.
How about a declaration of their income? Because this is another area which is interesting. Uganda did this a couple of years ago, and South Africa is doing it, and I think Kenya to date. If you're going to run for public office and you're a minister, you're a government official, just like here, you declare your income so that we are aware that the man has 2 million or 3 million in his account. He has properties, he has this, he has this. So you come in. Now, if you're leaving office, or you're suddenly in the office, and then you have suddenly 20 houses, or you have 4 billion on your account, where did the money come from in the last 5-6 years when you've been a public official, and you've been earning less than $100,000 a year or something, or pounds, or so that question mark would come in there, because you declared your income at the beginning when you come into office. So could that also come in and help? Because when Uganda declared, the officials were declaring their income, although it was sad that most of them, they declared the money when they were already in the office. But it's still, people read about it and say, hang on a minute, so-and-so has got 2 billion.
Yeah.
Where did he get the 2 billion from?
I think that was all part of,
could that help?
Yeah, it can help to a very large extent. Because if we are talking about, combating corruption, it is about trying to institute good governance. And it all relates to accountability and transparency, right? I've seen that happen, a few months ago in my country, Sierra Leone. You remember I told you that we now have a new,
new government,
dispensation.
He's coming up with new ideas.
Which came into power in April, led by, His Excellency retired Brigadier Julius Maada Bio. Before he appointed his ministers, they definitely declared
their assets.
Yes. Which is really, really good. They declare their assets to the people. And now everybody knows that if you're a government minister, you've got one house, you've got one car. In the next 5 years, in the next 5 years, they're going to check. If they realize you've got 3 or 4 other cars, you have to explain
where the cars came from.
Where the cars came from. That's a very good idea, because it promotes accountability and transparency. And that's a way of checking our government officials.
And Imran Khan, the new Pakistani Prime Minister, has introduced a law as well. He's saying, look, he started with himself anyway. He's declared what he has. And he's cut down on the government expenditures before starting with the companies and people who are coming into public office, because he says, look, there's a total waste in public office of what is really happening. And I think it's quite encouraging, because if he does that, he leads by example. He said, look, if I have already got my money and I'm getting my interest here, then there's no way you're going to ask me tomorrow, and I will still come back and tell you that, no, this is what I earned when I was in office. Why? The thing is that declaration is all right. But the thing is it's not followed afterwards. That's where the problem is. It's not followed afterwards.
I understand what you're saying. That's why, from the onset, I spoke about, us, as Africans generally, really changing our attitude towards managing public offices. Because we can come with very good ideas, but at the end of the day, we're not able to sustain these ideas. So until we're able to take stock of ourselves and reflect on timescales, if, say, we're going to be in this office for the next 5 years, let's have timescales, let's have checks and balances over a certain period of time, for us to really check ourselves. But once we are not able to do that, it's going to be very difficult.
There's a Nigerian guy who has come up with an idea. I don't know whether he'll be followed or not. He came from Japan, and he was suggesting that maybe the way where we're headed, because we have failed in what we're doing, if we bring in foreign observers most of the time to look at our elections and to ensure that the elections are free and fair, why can't we bring in the foreign observers to be part of the government because then the foreign observers to be part of governments in Africa, in a sense that if you bring in somebody who has already achieved a lot, he's not bribable. He will be, and secondly, he won't have the intention, he won't be corrupted by the government because he's not part of the government. But he can see what's going on in the government, because he claims that Malaysia, before its achievements, one of the things that it did was to ensure that it brings in the British and Americans, and they were employed even within the civil service. Now, you could easily bribe a Malaysian, but you couldn't easily bribe a British top engineer or a British top, somebody, because he's not answerable to you. He's answerable to somebody who's beyond your country. Now, but Stephen, I'm looking at that as an option. There's a massive downside. An option to, it's up to the Africans accepting that, because we've accepted foreign observers during the elections, and they have come up and said, look, these elections were free and fair, even though the opposition may come in and say, no, they were rigged. They were rigged because of left and right. In Kenya, it happened. It happened in Uganda. It has happened in most African countries. If they can be allowed in, then they can still be allowed in within the government. Don't you think it's a good idea?
It is a good idea, but I want to assure you,
it can't work.
I want to assure you, it is a good idea, but there have been lots of instances when foreign observers or international corporations have been manipulated.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You've got international donor agencies like the World Bank, the IMF.
Yeah.
You've got agencies like Transparency International.
Yeah.
These are all companies that are trying to promote
themselves,
fighting corruption and all of that. But first of all, if an international observer goes to your country, they're gonna be paid.
Of course, of course.
And it is about a job they have.
Yeah, they have to do. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And corruption is a thing that can easily not just disappear.
Yeah.
If government officials are corrupt, and if they are unwilling to change, they can easily manipulate these people, and especially countries where we've got lots of natural resources.
No, to a certain extent, I don't agree with you. I'll give you an example. Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
When we started Voice of Africa Radio a couple of years ago, it was a radio station based in Hackney, and they were given a license. And what happened is that as the radio was running, at the very beginning, if you're beginning something, what normally Ofcom does is say, look, we can guide you by a retired person who worked in radio for some time, could come in and sit in and work with you and guide you on where to go and what to do, and look at your finances and stuff like that. Because when you're given money and you're beginning, it's like a guidance. If you're first-time train driver or first-time driver, for example, in a car, you need somebody. You're a learner driver. You need someone to guide you on where to go. So as soon as you learn how to drive, then you can drive on your own. But those beginnings, a man who had been in radio for the last 50 years, he knew almost each and everything. He could breathe radio. So he advised us so many ways on what to do, what not to do. Now,
I understand what you're saying.
I'm saying if a retired politician, for example, like Barack Obama, the former American president, he agreed at one point to say he's more than willing to travel to Africa and meet heads of state, and
Bill Clinton, all those guys to Blair.
These are retired people. They don't need any money. They don't need to be bribed. What are you going to give Barack Obama that he never had? Or what are you going to give Bill Clinton? So what I'm saying is that those people could come in with their ideas. When they come in with their ideas, then it's up to leaders will say no, obviously. I don't see an African leader accepting that, because they know that they'll be looking at their fund. They'll be their pockets will be seen. The holes will be seen in their pockets.
I'm not totally.
But we as individuals can stand up and say, hey, if you don't let so and so come, be part of the government, then we know you're hiding something. What have you got to hide? Are you with me?
I know you are raising a good point. To an extent, right?
Yeah.
Them coming in to share the ideas with us.
Yeah.
Could be helpful for all of us to understand
of course,
what the situation is, what corruption is, and the impacts of corruption on our societies. I do understand that. It is a good thing. But the best people to solve this problem in Africa are the Africans.
We haven't solved it for the last 60 years.
They are the Africans themselves. And of course, remember, most African countries, were colonized by, some of these Western countries in the 60s.
Of course.
From that time to now, we are still struggling, and we are still thinking of bringing people to help us. So what's wrong with us? What's wrong with our mentality?
Let me tell you.
These are some of the big questions we have to reflect on.
I know, but the thing is, if you fail to do something yourself, then the chances are someone else may come in to help you. It's a common factor.
You spoke about the Chinese.
Yeah.
Why are the Chinese successful? Because it is the Chinese people
who came up.
Who came up, and now they are doing their thing. So we the Africans, we have to own up to our problems. And we have to change our mentality. And we have to believe in ourselves to be able to change the system. We don't have to continue to depend on people, the Western world, to go to Africa and help us or give us guidance in terms of what to do.
But listen, if the whole thing has failed, if we're entering now, we're entering over 60, 70 years since independence. Now, if we've failed in the last 60 years or 70 years to do something, how do you expect us to succeed in the next 50 years?
We're cool. That's why the education we're talking about has to be adaptable to our own systems, our own traditional systems.
Because you see, all these things about governments opening up, for example, their budgets, ministries keep putting things online and saying, look, this is what the ministry said they will do. This is what is happening. We have opposition in Africa, which challenges most of the government deals and so on. But because the governments are seated in power very comfortably, they say, if opposition, whatever they're going to say, they're not going to listen.
I'm pleased that you've mentioned,
you get my point,
You've mentioned issues around budgets. First of all, in terms of combating corruption, we need to have proper financial management systems. Which has much to do with transparency and accountability.
Of course,
You're talking about public budgets. Most of our African governments shroud issues around finance or budgeting in secrecy.
This is where the biggest problem is.
And this is not right.
No, it's not.
We've got the members of the public, we've got civil society organizations, who are supposed to be part of those processes, budgeting processes, financial management systems, but it's not happening.
No, it isn't. That's why I'm saying
it's not happening. So until we are able to put some of these structures in place, be very transparent with our finances, make budgets known to the public. If you're gonna allocate 20% of government budget to education,
somebody has been,
let the people know.
Somebody needs to
the
question
line
that.
items.
Somebody needs to question that.
Somebody needs to question that. It needs to go to the parliament. It needs to be vetted, and it needs to come to the public. But we don't see most of these things in our societies.
No, we don't. We don't. But basically, I think one of the problems why we don't, again, it comes down to the fact that the freedom of information, for example, is something that we haven't been trained so much to follow. The media following that, and it goes back again to the fact that they own, most of these rich people own the media, and obviously the people in certain sectors will kill off such stories if they are going to appear. It's such that they will read out a budget. They will say what they are going to do during the year, but nobody is going to follow up of whether something was done or not done. I remember I was reading about a commission of inquiry in Nigeria, which has taken nearly 10 years. It has never been completely, they put one commission of inquiry, and then they put another one, and then they put another one. It has never reached a conclusion, So my suggestion of bringing in outsiders, people might look at it and say, no, we need to stand on our 2 feet. But I've seen that the 2 feet we need to stand on have failed to make sure.
Our feet are failed.
No, our feet have failed to. Have failed to. Now, because they have failed to, then we need to do something. We need to try out a new radical ideas and see whether that idea could work. You know, because one of the biggest problems, our failures, is that we fail. We hate trying out sometimes new ideas. Sometimes we fear to try out something new.
But this is happening. I mean, as you rightly mentioned, international observers, you go in. That's why most African countries we have, World Bank representatives, the IMF, African Development Bank, and even the United Nations. These are the foreign actors and the foreign players who come to these countries to help us.
But they come in because they don't live there. Their interest is not really there. They come in because they come in and they look at the IMF and so on. I've mentioned them.
But again, there are lots of double standards.
Yeah, of course, there are lots of double standards. But the thing is that the only way that could come up, the only way it could be helpful is the sense that if someone comes in and he lives with you here permanently, on a permanent level, the chances that that person, even if he's employed by you, might say, no, I've been living, there's that royalty that will come in.
Stephen, I always challenge that point. I agree with you to an extent. But there are lots of Africans in the diaspora who are trained, who are educated, who are expatriates, who can go back to their countries and contribute. It doesn't matter who goes to Africa, who goes to Uganda, who goes to Sierra Leone. If the people of Sierra Leone, or if the people of Uganda are not willing to embrace the change, it's not going to happen. So until the local actors change their mindset to prepare for change, it's going to be very, very difficult. And sometimes, if foreign actors come in, they come in with their prescriptions.
Of course,
They come with their prescriptions, and some solutions to this corruption we are talking about are very basic. They are traditional methods.
Traditional methods?
Traditional methods. Yes.
Yeah.
Going back to the family values.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Corruption starts from the homes.
If
a little child wants something they don't have, maybe they're going to steal money from dad's pocket or somewhere in the cash box, and nobody does anything about it, it's going to continue. Little things. But however, on the other side, we have to be very realistic with ourselves. Some of the difficulties that we face, in combating corruption. Talking about the public offices, the salary scales.
Civil servants.
Civil servants, the salary scales. Some of these salaries that are paid to public officials are ridiculous and are just impossible to meet the needs of their families.
In other words, what you're saying that things changed and the salaries never changed regardless of whether...
I'm not saying that's an excuse for people to mismanage public funds. But if you are paid like £200 a month and your practical expenditure is £400, what do you expect?
And the standard of living has gone up.
Yes. And say you're an accountant and you have access to public funds, which you manage. There are lots of temptations. I'm not trying to justify. But these are some of the reasons why it's very difficult to combat corruption in our societies. So there has to be a lot of reform in our public systems, from our education system, salary structures, conditions of service, and all of that. When some of this is done, we're going to create an enabling environment to be able to manage, some of the challenges to combat this.
How about using the public institutions, the banks, the universities, the banks, universities, and schools, and because if it's known by almost everybody that, for example, I'll give an example. A certain village was given a certain amount of money by Al Jazeera television network, and they announced that the money would go to building a well, a school, and this and those. Everybody within the village knew the money had been given, and everybody was chasing the public official to ensure that those things are built. And they were actually built because the schools were aware the money was given, the banks were aware the money was given, the water company, all the people who contribute knew. Now, in a similar manner, if you say the banks, universities, and all the other institutions are aware of how much the budget is concerned, the government budget is, and are aware that money is being split in different areas, they could question the officials. So
of course,
that is part of it. But we go back to the educational structure.
Yeah,
could go back and say put a finger at exactly who shouldn't, because unless somebody comes behind you and say, hey, I know, then you won't act.
Yeah, that's how it should be. That's how it should be. So
public institutions should get them, should be informed.
Good governance.
Yeah.
Good governance is about inclusiveness.
Yeah, exactly,
including everyone.
Exactly.
It's the participatory approach.
Yeah.
Getting everyone involved, getting people to sharing information.
Yeah.
Especially around finances. Let's say, and as you rightly mentioned, you go to a community, you want to have a health project, you want to build a school.
Yeah.
If you tell the people that so and so amount has been allocated to this school, and we are going to spend 6 months to build a school, and they see that, and you involve the local actors in this project, and they see that it happens, definitely they're going to appreciate
it. It will happen, and it will happen.
Yes, and they're going to own up that particular project.
Exactly.
Like what's happening in my country, the current political leader appointed a very young and dynamic man to head the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Yeah.
Because the government is bent on fighting corruption.
Of course.
And the head of state in Sierra Leone, the president in Sierra Leone, mentioned that. In less than 9 months, this young man has been able to prosecute government officials.
Really?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And he's been able to recover around $1 million.
Whoa.
And the government is making that very open.
Yeah.
And
it's an open case now that others,
everybody knows.
Have to
everybody
follow.
knows.
Yeah.
And the government has also gone ahead to tell the people that this money is going to be used towards, instituting a medical center, a diagnostic center.
Yeah.
Because the medical system is poor in the country. So the president has already mentioned that money is going to be used to create a medical diagnostic center. And they're in the process.
In that area.
Yes. Yeah. And they're in the process of letting that happen. So these are the little things that will help to get people involved in the same process.
Yeah.
And gradually with education, people accept.
Will accept that.
Yeah, people accept those solutions.
Yeah. It has to be, like I said, it has to be fought from the grassroots, as you're saying, from the homes and from where, as you said, rightly. But then at the same time, it also has to be, maybe as a journalist, I'm always looking at, regardless of whether the media paid or not, if it's put in a public eye, and there is the freedom of information. So, for example, where someone can go and get this information and start questioning this information. Because what we lack the freedom of information in Africa. It hasn't been introduced so much. Where government research, if you're trying to go and get information about certain things in Africa, you probably won't get it because officials somewhere will sit on it.
Freedom of speech, that reminds me of a joke of a former president in Guinea, Sékou Touré.
Sékou Touré, yeah.
Yeah, you must have heard of that name.
Yeah.
There is a quotation from him to say, in relation to, freedom of speech and all of that.
Yeah.
It says in quotes, everybody have freedom of speech.
Yeah.
But you're not guaranteed freedom after speech.
Freedom after speech. They'll come after you.
Now everybody in this country, you have freedom of speech.
Yeah.
But you're not guaranteed freedom after speech.
Yeah.
Those are just jokes to say, African leaders, could be very dictatorial.
Yeah. That's what brings me back to the foreign policy. Not because I like it, I don't really like so much say I wouldn't really. We have this thing of non-interference into our affairs back in Africa. It's a common thing. Said, oh, this is Africa. We don't want someone to interfere within our, But the fact remains that Somalia, for example, we're saying that for quite some time. But then suddenly Somalia has given way now. It's saying, hang on a minute. If the foreign forces were not in Somalia today, the Ugandan forces are there, the Kenyan forces are there, and the Americans, and if they were not there today, I don't know whether people would still be moving the way they are moving, the UN and so on, So somewhere along the way, that's a typical example of how the foreign force could really help. If militarily it can happen, then it can happen even during the peace times.
Huh? First of all, I mean, these are modern times.
Yeah.
And the world itself is now a global world.
Exactly.
No country is isolated.
Yeah.
That's the wind of change that's blowing.
So we should advocate for foreign interference.
Are
you agreeing with me?
When it's necessary. When it's necessary. It happened in West Africa.
Yeah. ECOWAS was trying to do something.
In the Gambia.
Yeah, in the Gambia.
President Yahya Jammeh was in office for like 22 years.
Yeah.
And, he was defeated. Very recently by the opposition leader.
Yeah.
And he was reluctant to.
Oh, the man was in fact working here.
Yeah, he was working here.
He was working here for quite
and he was
some time,
reluctant to hand over power.
Yeah.
So the economic community of West African states, they came together, and applied some pressure.
Yeah.
On him, and he left.
Yeah, that's interesting because that shows how this whole thing can work out.
Yes. Economic cooperation and regional integration.
Yeah.
Other states working together. Of course, I've been talking about the wind of change.
Yeah.
We recently spoke about the Arab uprising.
Oh yeah, the uprising.
So these are some of the.
It could happen. It could happen. But the thing is, again, like we're speaking about it, we're debating about it. Is to advocate for it, because the question of simply discussing it and then leaving it there, and then the next generation, advocating for it in terms of writing articles or something like that would be ideal as well, because sometimes we say certain things and we just leave them at the table.
And they just go away, isn't it?
Yeah. We hope that they'll go away, but they won't go away. Because we need to do something about them. Yeah.
Everything is there. Everything is there. You go to Facebook, you go to YouTube.
Yeah.
All these recordings are there.
Yeah. So it will be interesting. But again, going back, the educational structure, should Africa change the entire educational structure it has? Maybe because the 60s, what we still have is what the British left behind in the 60s, the British and the French left in the 60s. They have already changed their systems over here. Don't we think we need to change that as well?
Even we need lots of reforms, to be adaptable to our own system. Even some of our laws are still colonial laws.
Of course they are.
Yes, I remember looking through, my country's laws related to, safeguarding children and families, and I saw some laws that were established like in the 1940s.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, the world has changed over the years.
When the world has changed, these are little things that we as Africans, or we as African public officials, are supposed to be owning up. These little things. We should not wait for the Americans or the British to go to our countries and say, you've got 1940 laws, why can't you do some reform? What are we waiting for? We don't want to catch up with the rest of the world.
Yeah, we probably do, but the people at the top are different kind of species. When you become a head of state,
they are like me and you, Stephen. They are like me and you, Stephen.
You become a different person when suddenly you're seated in that chair.
There has to be that willingness.
You're enjoying. Yeah, there has to be that.
There has to be that willingness. There has to be the political will. And you mentioned previously, because we are talking about leadership and corruption. There has to be that political will. And our public officials should lead by example. Of
course.
They should be the example.
Of course.
If you're a public minister, and people see you involved in corrupt practices, how are you going to tell them to stop?
The thing is that I still believe that the pressure, if we don't put pressure on somebody, nobody's going to act if the pressure is not there.
I think that's what we're doing. We're talking about
we're talking about media,
it, but freedom of the press.
But we need to encourage more of them to so that it is not simply an individual. Because I remember a couple of years ago when the American government took refugees from Burundi, and nearly 2,000 of them from Tanzania to U.S. And I wrote a letter to the then Secretary General of the African Union, but then it was called the OAU. He died a couple of years ago. But it was with the Secretary General, and I said, look, this is like a modern kind of slave trade. We shouldn't have allowed these refugees to go to U.S. When they could have easily been integrated in other parts of Africa. And the man wrote back to me and said, look, we went around African countries to try and find out who could be interested in taking them. And nobody was interested. Uganda wasn't, Kenya wasn't, Tanzania was already telling them to go back. They can't go to Burundi. Now, nobody was interested. So America turned up, interested in taking them. He took them. So tell me, if nobody's interested in them, then what else could do? They did a similar thing in Sudan as well. So it goes to show you to what extent, but at least I tried. I tried.
Yeah. I mean, that's your own effort. You made.
Yeah.
Just like as you mentioned, what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Is a way of opening up a discourse.
Okay.
For people to join the fight against corruption.
Yeah.
I mean, coming back to the quotation here of Nelson Mandela.
Yeah. The resources and so on.
Yeah, we've got all the resources.
Yeah.
Like in my country, we have diamonds, we have gold, we have bauxite, and everything.
Yeah.
But it is one of the poorest countries in the world. It's a massive irony.
Yeah, it is. It is a massive irony. It is. Honestly.
It's a big irony.
Yeah.
So I always reflect on what is the problem. What is the problem?
Yeah. The problem is that we tend to push the problem to the politician.
It's corruption.
Yeah, I know. Corruption is there. But if the politicians are not doing anything about it, we tend to, as we rightly say, you lead by examples. Those who are not, maybe would be the kind of people to not to enforce it, but to show the example. Because the amount of money that is taken, some of these people will never use it in their lifetime.
Of course.
When you read about Nigeria and you say, wow,
of course.
10, 20 billion.
Why are you going to use all of that money?
What is it going to do
people
with
all
that?
Are dying in squalor.
Yeah.
There is massive poverty.
And I think once it's taken out, it's difficult to bring it back. It can't come back because
you can't bring everything back.
You try and oh gosh,
you have to pay taxes, isn't it?
Yeah, of course on it, but because the money is yours, why can't you bring it back? You have the right to give you back your money. It's your money. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be hard. But as we rightly so.
But it's possible.
Yeah,
I mean, another example is the president of Tanzania.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name rightly.
Magufuli, yeah.
That guy is a model in Africa.
Yeah.
When he came into power, he did little things, to manage the situation in his country and to minimize corruption. For example, he came at a time when there was a UN General Assembly meeting or so.
Okay.
When you see other African countries going delegations of like 50, 60 people.
I remember.
The first thing he did was to reduce the amount of people on the delegation.
Yeah.
That's a way of minimizing costs.
Yeah.
Reducing corruption. And using that money into something else to benefit his people.
Yeah. I remember he did mention that.
Yeah.
He cut down quite a lot.
Yes, these are typical examples, and he's still doing it
in the hospitals and so on.
Yes.
Yeah, but of course, but he's doing it, but. He was being warned that I think he's doing it the wrong way because the pressure he puts on. Because when you haven't put something in place, if, for example, I have in a place where there were 10 pens and suddenly there's 1 pen, the chances are someone else comes in and that 1 pen will disappear. Then what else are you going to use? You need to go, when you're cutting down on certain things, you cut them slowly until they reach that level. I think that's, to me, that's how it should be.
How come? He went to the hospital. A particular equipment was not working.
Yeah.
He gave an ultimatum to the director of that hospital.
Yeah.
To fix that equipment in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
And it happened. By the time he came back, that equipment had been fixed. You see, sometimes, you know, our attitude towards combating corruption as government officials also plays a very important role.
Okay.
Not everybody's going to like you for everything.
Yeah.
But on a whole, that guy is really, really doing well for that country. And he is an African leader.
Of course, yeah, of course.
Simply because he's not there with a mindset to accumulate wealth, but to serve his people.
Of course. But what about where areas, say for example, there's the fear of death? Because some people have been killed. If you're going to interrupt, if you're going to interfere with a system which we know has been working, I know for sure in Uganda, I think a number of people...
For someone not to kill you?
Yeah, they do.
Trump will have died in America. Somebody will have shot him.
No, Trump's case is, I think, it's a different ball game. And
Trump will have died.
If it was in Africa, someone would have already maybe bought for somebody to do something about
use voodoo or find a way to
use voodoo, African voodoo or something. He would have done something about it.
You know,
there's that fear factor. That fear factor. We need also to come in and say, how do we overcome that? If you're fearing to climb a mountain and you're fearing to do something, there has to be a way in which you can overcome your fear factor. And I think this is what happens in most corrupt area. Because if someone wants to do something for you, and surely he says, no, I'm sorry, I can't do it, much as I would have loved to do it, but I've got the other man to come across to jump over, and that man is saying, no, there's no way I can let you go through.
Probably that's the only place I can agree with you for a leadership training. Because if we are talking about leadership, to be a good leader, you need to have certain qualities. And leadership is about delivering services.
Exactly.
You don't have to think about what somebody has to say or what somebody has to do.
Because as long as you deliver the
services, as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do to meet the needs of your people, then you're a leader.
Of course.
But if you start hesitating because, oh no, I can't prosecute Stephen because Stephen is my brother, Stephen is my cousin, they've started to compromise.
Again, we go back, but that's where the outsiders would come in, because an outsider is an outsider. If you take me to Sierra Leone tomorrow, and I know nobody in Sierra Leone, and suddenly there's something that I need to do. Now, I will be the stumbling block between you and the brother you went to school with and someone else, because you will say, I can't pass beyond Stephen, because Stephen is none of us. And, I will be a stumbling block where nobody is going to ask me to give me a bribe because of who I am. I'm not one of you. You see my point?
Yeah, I know.
So that point, that's where we come back to say, if we get foreigners, if we get those who have already, how are you going to stand in front of somebody you don't know and you start saying, look, I'm giving you this amount of money because I want this. You say, no, listen, my brother, I don't take anything from, because he doesn't know who you are. You see my point?
I mean, it's got its advantages, but at the same time, Stephen, I will always challenge that point to say, it is the Africans themselves who have to own up to their problems and solve them. Look, the foreigners can contribute, but not much.
Of course.
Let me give you an example. To celebrate the, I think, the day for, there was a celebration. I told you that Pierre Lumumba. Who is, a very good speaker. And
he's a good motivational
pioneers.
One of the best.
Pioneers, for fighting corruption in Africa. Was in Sierra Leone a few weeks ago. And he delivered a speech, at Friday College, at the University of Sierra Leone. What he said was, he was not there to give solutions.
No.
Or he was not there to give prescriptions of what we should do. He was only there to share ideas.
That's what he always does anyway.
I really appreciate that, because that should be the role of an independent person or a foreign player. But coming back to my point, until the indigenes, the local actors, are ready to embrace whatever change you take, it's not gonna be.
How about the use of equipment, the use of ideas and equipment. Say, for example, I'll give South Africa. They introduced, a couple of years ago, they introduced cameras in public offices. They introduced video cameras, speed cameras in streets. Most of African countries haven't gone through that level, but Kenya has started, and now Uganda is also introducing them. Now, speed cameras, somebody who is operating the camera is not your brother. He's not your brother, he's not your cousin. Even if he is, he won't help you, because once your car has been caught on the system, you either pay or they impound the car.
Yeah, fair enough.
You get the point.
Yeah,
now, the introduction of such in offices as well, and the fact that those ones put like a backstop, say, you can't come to me and say, oh, my car was taken and I need, and they're going to ask me, where's the money for that car which you impounded? And I'll have to answer for that. So there's no way I'm going to give you that car back. You see, those, I'm using this as an example.
Yeah.
These are some of the things we need to bring in, so that these are things which could prevent more of state losing money, for example.
Definitely, I mean, I agree with you. I know, some of those mechanisms, now it's like using technology.
Using technology.
To minimize corruption. I mean, that is why, societies like the Western world have systems in place.
Exactly.
They have systems in place that act as preventative measures for corruption. That's why I spoke about, having a robust financial management system in our countries. And technology definitely plays a key role. For example, anytime I go to my country, Sierra Leone, when I go buy fuel, there is a fuel attendant who sells to me, and I have to pay the fuel attendant.
Of course,
Here, what happens?
You do it yourself.
I put my card, blah, blah, blah. Or I go to the car park, I do it myself.
Exactly.
That money is not going into anybody's hands. Or I use my card. So some of these systems and processes, of course, they've been established long since in other societies. So that's helping. So I definitely agree with your point. I definitely agree with your point. If we are able to institute some of these mechanisms, it's definitely a very good way in helping us to reach that level. But I mean, they are financial.
The question is, will they be accepted? Otherwise, they will be broken down. Someone will come and break them down.
They will be accepted. If it comes with a lot of sensitization, a lot of education, back to the point where we started, a lot of education, we educate our people that we're going to install speed cameras, because these speed cameras are going to help to minimize speed in
the speed area. Of the, because people are being killed on the roads.
That's one. And the revenue we collect from those who pay tickets are going to be used to improve the roads.
Exactly.
We continue those kind of education. With time, people accept it.
They could work out.
They could work on it because it's happening in other African countries.
And another thing which we probably haven't touched so much and which is not so common is people like Lumumba, for example, who are going around and giving lectures onto issues that are of value to society are not so much welcome or encouraged, and that is where again we are lacking behind the West, because there are so many public speakers here, and the way the public speakers are paid is some of the money comes from the government funds, others come from private hands. Part of the education is there. Now in Africa we have public speakers there too, and these are some of the things that could be encouraged, not just by the Africans, by the governments themselves, but with the other people as well. Don't you think it's worth giving the gamble?
Of course. That's why I always talk about, replicating ideas, probably, from advanced societies to suit our own systems. Remember, we've got traditional leaders.
Of course.
Yes. We've got like religious leaders, we've got tribal elders, we've got people in those communities. Talking about public speakers, we have people there who are orators.
Of course.
People there who are custodians of customary laws. We can still use these people to pass those messages, to sensitize our people.
Who can push them? That's the thing.
corruption is not rocket science.
No, it isn't.
It's not rocket science.
It's not.
In fact, what the commissioner for the Anti-Corruption Commission in Sierra Leone has done with Lumumba's speech in Sierra Leone, it's going to be translated
and
in local languages and spread all around. That's a very good way of sensitizing people. You know, so as you rightly mentioned, people like Lumumba, we haven't got much of them.
No, we don't.
But we can create Lumumba's kinds in a traditional level.
Of course, or at a traditional level. We can
create this kind of traditional level.
Because
we have people there who have ideas.
Of course.
And corruption is not okay. Everybody knows what corruption is. Everybody knows what corruption is. Yeah, you take something that does not belong to you.
Exactly.
Or you're in an office and you use certain facilities there.
Because also showing them examples of what you can do, with money that should have gone into someone else's hand. Those examples could be the key to actually cutting it. Because if you say we built a school here and this school would never have been built had it not been because of ABCD, then brains will be open and say, hey, I think we need to do more to make sure that we get more schools, or we get more hospitals, or we get more of this. You get my point. So
the education of public officials is all about their mentality. It is about their mentality. I was just thinking about, the role of public corporations. Corporate governance. Big corporations, like in my country, we've got mining companies that go there. The same mining companies are in other countries, and they are doing very well. They are building schools, roads, health centers.
But again, that comes about because of governments. Because I remember I was attending an event, and one of the Shell executives was saying when they went to Nigeria.
All right, you're coming to my point?
They actually suggested building a school in the Ngoni area because there was a lot going on in Ngoni area, the roads, but the Nigerian government at the time said, no, we will do the schools ourselves. But 40 years.
So what happens along the line?
40 years down the line,
they mismanage those resources. That's what they do, isn't it?
The school have never been built, and nothing has ever been. That's why the Ngoni people were fighting.
I mean, there was a late Ken Sariwa who was killed, the Ngoni activist. I remember that story very well. That's just.
So the man was saying, don't blame us. We were going to do something about this. We've done this in the Arab world. They've done it. They've done it here.
That's why I want to come back to my point to say it is the indigenous people who have to have the mindset
dealt with, because
to deal with their problems.
If they had insisted on that years ago.
That's why, like Ken Sariwa was killed, because he stood against oppression. Because those corporations, Shell, had a responsibility because they have corporate social responsibilities to contribute to the societies. But somebody stood against them. And these are the kind of people we need in Africa. We need to stand, we need to lead by example. We need to resist oppression. And corruption is part of oppression.
Of course.
So that mindset, to a very large extent, has to change.
It has to. It's a debate which I'm afraid we can't.
It's unending.
It's an ending one. It's an ending one. We could be here for the whole day.
I know.
And the whole night, and we won't change anything. It will still be the same. And as rightly said, it's a mindset. It's something that we need to deal with. And I do hope that the next generation, maybe our generation, it is going to be pretty difficult to deal with, but maybe the next generation will have a very different mindset after having seen and having gone through. Sometimes it takes the suffering to wake up people's minds and to wake people up, and then people become good people, good citizens or something like that, after realizing that over the years things won't change. Somebody takes a stand, as you said, and it happens. So
I mean, change. I believe, I'm very positive, that Africa will reach that level when, all of us will be happy to say corruption has minimized, because we cannot eradicate corruption, because when that happens, there'll be some elements of even distribution of resources, to a large extent that can reduce poverty and you know, people have access to resources equally, like others. Not like some people, the fat cats. And, you know, somebody's there not getting anything, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, everything has a beginning and an end. I just want to say thank you very, very much for coming to the studio.
Thank you too for
this debate. I've really learned quite a lot. And I do hope that we'll meet again next time for maybe another lively debate like this one. And we could maybe educate our people more, and maybe they've taken into this information, and it might be of use to them. I just want to wish you all the best in whatever you're trying to do. And remember, the fight is never won sometimes if you don't try. If you try, you try and try and try, and sometimes you win. Most likely, you might win. But if you don't try at all, you never know whether you win. Thank you very much for viewing this program, and I do hope that we'll be together again next week for another edition of Africa Speaks.
Thank you.